Hey everyone, welcome back to 996 Style. Today in this video, we're looking at former Utah players and how they are doing in their new threads with their new teams. I didn't go before Utah, and even some of these players never even dressed for the Utah Hockey Club, but they were still property of Utah at the time. So let's get into it. I started with the first player who's having an unbelievable season, a career year in Josh Doan. He's really taking his opportunity by the reins and running away with it. Josh Doan playing on the top line for the Sabres with Tage Thompson on the Sabres, having a lot of power play time as well. He's playing over a minute and a half more per game on the power play, and that's power play unit number 1. Whereas with Utah, he was on power play unit number 2. He was on the third line with like Krause and McBain, and even though they had great analytical numbers, they never really tested Doan up top with Keller and Schmaltz or Keller and Hayden. Last season, he had 19 points in 51 games played, so he's already eclipsed those point totals. He's already having a career year in goals and points with 24 points in 36 games played. His analytics has transferred from Utah to Buffalo. He's a great 5-on-5 player. Pretty much the possession stats and expected goals for stats are the same from Utah to Buffalo. So congrats to Josh Doan on having a great year. Buffalo had a rough start to the season, and then they entered the Christmas break on a 7-game win streak. I do think Utah is a better team, better system compared to Buffalo. So maybe, you know, they're playing Josh Doan with some willy-nilly, maybe not great as a defensive team Buffalo is, whereas I think Utah is a better defensive team than Buffalo. Then we go to Kesslearing, who's got donuts on the board in 13 games played, also in Buffalo, both of them involved in the J.J. Peterka trade. Obviously, Kesslearing, a rough start to the year. He had 2 injuries, first in preseason and then one shortly into the season, both lower body injuries. Last year, he had 29 points in 82 games played. His time on ice is down about 2 minutes as well from Utah to Buffalo. So Utah played Kesslearing way more than Buffalo, but those were due to all those injuries on the back end earlier in the season for the Utah Hockey Club. He's currently on the second pair with Owen Power, who's a great defenseman, former first overall draft pick. Expected a little bit more out of Kesslearing, but again, he's been dealing with injuries, so can't expect too much out of that. Then we go to Matias Michelli, playing on the Toronto Maple Leafs, who we traded for a 3rd-round pick. For that 3rd-round pick to elevate to a 2nd-round pick, we need Michelli to score 50-plus points, and the Leafs need to make the playoffs. So both of those not really having that trajectory. So maybe we all need to be fans of the Toronto Maple Leafs for the second half of the season. Michelli slightly better than last year's total. Last year with Utah, he had 18 points in 55 games played. Now he's at 11 points in 25 games played, but both of those seasons are a far cry from what he managed to do with the Arizona Coyotes in their last year, having 57 points in 82 games played for the Coyotes. So his play dropped off hard. What coaches want out of Michelli is having a well-rounded game. He's not a great two-way player. He's pretty bad defensively. Maybe he gives a lot of giveaways up, trying to dangle here and there. Doesn't have that instinct to shoot, which is why you see him sometimes in the doghouse, and he's been healthy scratched with the Leafs a couple times. Next, we go to Connor Ingram, whose stat line looks unbelievable for the Oilers. He just got called up from the American Hockey League about a week or 2 ago. He's undefeated, only playing 2 games, great goalie numbers. Last year, he was 9-8-4 with the Utah Hockey Club, an .882 save percentage and a .327 goals against average. But in the American Hockey League, he had the worst, not even exaggerating, the worst goalie stats out of the whole league. If you go to the AHL.com website, you go to goalie stats, you filter by save percentage and goals against average. He was at the bottom of both lists. He had a .856 save percentage and a .404 goals against average. Some goalies do well in the AHL and do worse in the NHL. Some goalies do better in the NHL compared to the AHL. The NHL is more predictable. You have more faith in your defense, whereas the American Hockey League, way more chaotic and unpredictable. So hopefully Ingram wins pretty much every game except games against Utah. That's pretty much where I'm at for Connor Ingram. It's a good feel-good story, and I hope he finds success as the Oilers' backup. But I think now he's a starter because Jari is injured. I'm not sure how long that injury is. Next, we go to Bjugstad in St. Louis. 5 points in 25 games played, playing in a fourth-line role. Last year, like Michelli, a really down year. He had 19 points in 66 games played, so he's pretty much on the same pace as he was with Utah. But the last season in Arizona, like Michelli, a great year for Bjugstad. He had 22 goals on this season before the Coyotes moving to Utah. Next, we go to some players. Well, Kolyachonok did play for Utah. He had 5 points in 23 games played, but they put him on waivers in February 2025, Utah did. He was claimed by Pittsburgh, and then Pittsburgh traded him to Dallas in July 2025. And then most recently, Dallas put him on waivers, and now he's claimed by Boston. So now he's playing for Boston, even though those 3 points in 12 games were for Dallas. He played just a handful of games, like I mentioned, for Utah, but it didn't really knock the door down. And with all the with all those defensive injuries Utah had getting healthier, they had to put people on waivers. We saw Valimaki be put on waivers, and he cleared to Tucson earlier in 2025. And Kolyachonok was a casualty to the waiver wire. Next, we go to players who didn't suit up for Utah, but were part of Utah property, part of the organization. Soderstrom, a former first-round pick, 11th overall by the Coyotes in 2019, refused to report to Utah, the Utah Hockey Club training camp. So he played in Sweden all of last year, and then he got traded at the deadline to Chicago in March 2025, and then Chicago traded him to Boston in June 2025. So now both those defensemen are playing for the Boston Bruins. Then we go to Moser and Geeky, who were involved in the Sergachev trade. They did not put on the Utah sweater, but I still would put them here because they're a Utah property. That Sergachev trade is a Utah trade. It's not an Arizona trade. So I still included Moser and Geeky. Moser having a great year, maybe not offensively, but I mean, he's plus 24 on this season. He's playing top pairing with Darren Radish. No idea who that is, but the Tampa Bay Lightning have great numbers when Moser's on the ice. The team save percentage, the team goals for percentage, all the 5-on-5 analytics are incredible when Moser is on the ice. Hedman is injured for Tampa, so Moser's taking up the responsibility. He had 26 points in 80 games played with Arizona's last season, so he's doing okay in the offensive department as well. But good for Moser to stepping up defensively. I don't think he would have been a number one defenseman for Utah. I think they did need to make that trade for Sergachev. Sergachev had a great, unbelievable year for the hockey club. Maybe slightly less for the Mammoth, but there's still half a season left. And he's still being relied upon way more than Moser would ever be. Sergachev's averaging about 24, 25 minutes a night, playing PP, playing PK, always relied on, with like 3 minutes left in the game, a tight checking game. Sergachev is heavily relied upon. Also going with Moser to Tampa Bay was Connor Geeky, drafted 11th overall in 2022 by Bill Armstrong. Soderstrom was not drafted by Bill Armstrong. That was a John Shaika draft in 2019. So this is the first, I consider, the only first round pick that Bill Armstrong has traded, but they actually did use the pick to select a player in Connor Geeky. In hindsight, this is a good trade because immediately after trading Geeky, we drafted Cole Doan, which is another depth centerman like Geeky, and we lucked into Caleb Desnoyers, who's a high-end centerman. So we replaced that center depth with losing Geeky with Baudouin and Desnoyers. Geeky not doing too well in the NHL. He's still pretty much playing most of his career in the American Hockey League, and he's a point-per-game player in the AHL with 24 points in 24 games played. So taking longer than what I expected Geeky. So that's 2 seasons from that trade, or a season and a half separated from that trade for Sergachev, and Geeky is still not an NHL regular. So by now I would have expected Geeky to be an NHL regular for this organization, Utah. and be a third line center, but he's still not there yet. Needs to develop a little bit more. So a very long-term project there with Moser Geeky. And then Curtis Douglas, who was put on waivers right before the season started for the Mammoth. He's a 6'9", 240-pound enforcer. This is his first ever time playing in the NHL. He's 25 years old. This probably would have been that Liam O'Brien replacement. I believe O'Brien's got one more year on his contract, but he's just a pure enforcer, averaging 6 minutes a game when he's in the lineup, and he's pretty much only in the lineup to fight. But what a monster of a man, and more young blood and more energy if he was supposed to be the replacement for Liam O'Brien for Utah moving forwards. I'm sure Bill Armstrong didn't like him getting picked off by waivers by the Tampa Bay Lightning. Bill Armstrong loves his size and 6'9". I think Douglas for sure was the tallest and biggest player in the Utah organization, and they acquired him from the Toronto Maple Leafs like in 2022 in a Connor Timmins trade. So even though he was with the Tucson Roadrunners for like 2 or 3 seasons and never was brought up to the NHL, I'm sure Bill Armstrong and company had expectations for Douglas to take that step to the NHL, but unfortunately he's doing it with the Tampa Bay Lightning. So these are the former players, how they're doing just heading into the Christmas break. And for me, loving Josh Doan. He's having a great year. He's getting those opportunities that he wasn't getting in Utah. It's a great trade for Peterka, expecting a little bit more from him. But those concerns Buffalo Sabres had about his defensive play, I'm not really seeing any glaring mistakes consistently by Peterka. I really do think they're not utilizing Peterka well. He's more of a player with such north-south speed. He needs to hold on to the puck from the neutral zone into the offensive zone, down the wing, and unleash a shot. And just maybe they just need to figure out how to really unlock that power. And hopefully Michelli does have a great second half of the year, gets those 50 points, and helps the Leafs to the playoffs. So that's it for me. Thank you for watching. If you like what you see, spread the word. And as always, thank you for your support.